Here's a wild thought. Maybe every family is dysfunctional in its own way. Some fight, some ignore each other, some can't live without each other. Families come in all flavors. One parent, two parents, same-sex parents, blended families, and sometimes friends become closer than blood. And if you're lucky, you reach adulthood and still like each other. The truth is, family doesn't always look the way we expect it to. In this episode, I want to take you back to my own beginnings, my childhood, my family, and the roots that shaped me. And not only the roots that shaped me, but the lessons that you learn in childhood, or that I have learned in childhood, and those that I've carried forward into my life as an adult, and now almost an 80-year-old adult. My father actually grew up in an orphanage. His dad died when he was young, and his mother, himself, and his brother came over to Canada from Ireland, I believe. I haven't done that 23andMe thing, so this is just what I remember them telling me. Came over and settled in Montreal. His brother went to live with some cousins in the Eastern Townships, and my dad's mom, my grandmother, worked in an orphanage. So basically, my dad grew up in an orphanage until his mom met someone and married them. So really, my dad did not have any model parents, if you will, to determine how a family should or should not be. He was extremely strict to the point of being ridiculous at times. And really no communication skills with my mom. He used to give her the silent treatment all the time, which was devastating for the whole family and very uncomfortable at the dinner table. My mom, on the other hand, came from a very large family. I think she was one of 7 children, 7 living children, 4 sisters and 2 brothers, and I believe at least 1 additional brother who was killed during the war. So they grew up with people around them all the time. Friends, everybody used to come to their house. However, my mother was an introvert. She really did not have the skills to make friends easily. She was very formal, very proper, loving in her own way. So our household was really a traditional household, if you will. My mom was a stay-at-home mother. My father worked for the same company for 30 some odd years before he retired. And my sisters and I had a very strict life. Me being the eldest more so than the others. My middle sister, not so much. She rebelled. And by the time my younger sister came along, I don't think they were too concerned about rules at that point. What did I learn from that? Watching my parents, who did not really communicate about much that I could see as a child and even as a teenager, was that you really need to find a partner that you can discuss things with, to have open communication, talk about anything, because a silent treatment, you're just avoiding whatever the issue is, and nothing ever gets resolved until one day, they wake up and start talking to one another again. What does that solve? I was the eldest of 3 children, 3 girls. My parents did have a boy prior to my birth who, I don't know exactly how old he was, but he had not reached a year when he passed with a heart problem. My middle sister, who's 4 years younger than I, you know, we fought over the most stupid things you could imagine. Clothes, boyfriends, why aren't you doing the dishes? Why aren't we sharing? It just really, when I look back at it, the most ridiculous things. However, kids are kids, right? And then I had a younger sister who was, and still is, 8 years younger than myself. And to be honest, I don't remember a lot about her as a very young child. What I do remember is that at some point in time, us 3 girls were assigned to do the dishes at night. And the middle sister, she ran off to the bathroom. And my younger sister and I, we would do the dishes. We would have the radio on and we would dance. And it was so much fun. That is really the one memory that I have about my youngest sister that stays in my mind. What did I bring with me from all those experiences as a young kid? Well, the first thing I think about is how ridiculous were all those fights and disagreements that we had as young children. And thankfully, we have great rapport now. My middle sister lives out in Vancouver, British Columbia. My younger sister lives just west of Toronto in a small town of Paris, Ontario. We have a group chat going and we chat every day, multiple times. We're just talking about everyday life, what our children and grandchildren are up to, what we're cooking for dinner, new recipes, sharing new recipes, what books we've read. It's wonderful, really. And whenever we get a chance to visit, we do, which is not all that often, unfortunately. I hope that I'm still able to travel in the future. You know, we never know what life is going to throw at us as we get older, so we have to live each day as it comes to us and be grateful that we wake up in the morning. As I mentioned earlier, we really grew up in a very typical 50s and 60s environment. My parents were able to purchase a house in a new community west of Montreal, and really, they paid $9,000 for that house back in the day. 50s, I think, around 1950. I was around 5 when we moved in. And it was just this very simple house, 2 bedrooms upstairs. My sisters and I shared 1 bedroom. My parents had the other. A 3rd bedroom could have been made downstairs, but my mom chose to have a dining room, a formal dining room, which I guess was a thing back in the day. And you know, we went out and played on the street, rode our bikes, played hide and seek, baseball. We were very middle class. We didn't have a lot of money, but we had clothes on our back, and we each had a bike. And my mom sewed a lot of our clothes when we were younger, and it was just, you know, just fun, typical childhood. nothing out of the ordinary. And we learned to socialize with the other kids on the street. Sometimes we'd argue, sometimes they didn't want to play with you. And you know, you learn to cope as a young kid. Because what else could you do? You just had to. As I reflect back on those years, I realize how fortunate we were really to grow up in an environment that wasn't abusive. We didn't want for anything. It was not perfect by any stretch of the imagination. And I'll get into more of that when I talk about being a teenager. But, you know, I really don't have anything to complain about when you look around and see how other kids have grown up that maybe are not as fortunate as we were. I think we came out of it unscathed, or I did. Further to that thought, I have very different memories growing up than my two sisters did. I think I was a very outgoing child. I enjoyed being around other people, and I looked for friendships. As I said earlier, my teenage years were very different because my father was very strict. But I somehow got through my teenage years too. More to follow.